Good day. I am Tamara Scott. Thank you for joining us on Tamara Scott Live with Truth for Our Time. Just to put that in there. We bring you God's Word in today's world, and we help you when the headlines hit home. And as always, there's always so much information and news coming at you. I looked one day when I was in Washington, D.C. along the subway, and there was a row. I should bring that photo in. There was a row of newspaper vendors and boxes, and I thought, there is no reason for us not to be informed and not to know what's happening in our country, and yet so many of us are, because it's happening so quickly it's hard to keep up. Today we're going to focus on a couple of different things. I have some exciting guests joining me, Chuck Hurley with the Family Leader and Tom Chapman with the Iowa Catholic Conference. And actually it's just Catholic Conference in general.
Yeah, that's right. Well, a lot of states have a Catholic conference too, and the U.S. bishops have a Catholic conference, so we'll answer to any of it. So
very good, which is perfect because people ask when we're talking about possible sponsors, well, are you a state show or a national show? We do both. We do both because often things impact both, and we give you both levels of which they will affect your family. We do want to thank one of our sponsors at this point. Crave Ministries has come on and joined us as a sponsor, and you can find them online, crave.org, Christians Reviving American Values. We're very pleased to have them come on board, and they're doing that so that if you want to give to a 501c3, you can do that, and they'll help us with this show. So we appreciate that, and if you know of another organization that wants to come on board, make sure that there's truth out there because there's so little of it in all those boxes that I saw along the subway and all those TV stations that are on. If you want to make sure that there's a little bit of voice, truth, a little light in the darkness coming out, we'd love to have you join us as a sponsor. You can email me at truthforourtime@gmail.com, or you can talk to someone here at webcast1live.com. Webcast One Live is how we're powered. You can join us during the conversation however you wish. 855-244-0077, 855-244-0077, and also, you can go onto the webcast1live.com. There's a chat line. I won't be on today because they changed the password, and I have to figure out how to get my sign back on. So maybe as we're going along, Ryan can put some of the websites on for you, and you can chat with the other listeners while we're there. A couple of things in the headlines. Friend of mine, Peter LaBarbera, former Concerned Women for America staff member, a guardian of truth. Americans for Truth is the organization he's with, had traveled to Canada to speak at a pro-life conference. I believe it was Regina University. He was detained at the border and told he wouldn't be allowed into the country. Those were the first headlines I saw. Immediately, I wondered if it was my friend Peter LaBarbera, but I thought I heard he was somewhere else. Shortly later, and I got that first note from Dawn Stefanowicz, who we've interviewed on this show on religious liberty because she lives in Canada and can warn us of the tribunals that take place there. And I think unless something's changed, no one has ever been found innocent when put up for a tribunal. No one has ever been found innocent to date in Canada. So the news came the next day or day later, and not only was it Peter LaBarbera, he had been let go from the border only to be arrested on the campus. Arrested for speaking about life and simply voicing concerns over the lifestyle and the health issues of homosexuality. Now, if you want to talk about hate crimes, I would invite you to look up barbwire.com, Matt Barber's website, barbwire.com. Check out the comments, not from Peter LaBarbera, but from those who oppose Peter LaBarbera. You'll see what hate is, my friends. It's not those who are teaching and talking truth. It's those who stand against it and want to keep you in the darkness. Along with that, I bring that up because right here in Iowa, the Gortz House, Gortz, is facing their own religious persecution. A small family starting a business, hoping to be able to retire into that business, a love that she has wanted her whole life, one of those dreams they save. Mm-hmm. They actually saved money and saved a church in the process. A beautiful architectural structure was going to be torn down. Mm. They saved the money, bought the building, and she put an art gallery in there. She's an artist herself. She makes jewelry. She does paintings. I got to stop by there yesterday and have time with Betty Gertz Odegaard.
Odegaard, yeah.
Odegaard. What a sweet person.
She's great.
Great staff, beautiful wares and things that you can purchase, art. But their business is down. The Chamber of Commerce has been quiet. Those friends they thought they had are not coming out so strong. When the persecution starts, people tend to distance themselves. So I bring this up to keep them in prayer. The Gortz House, if you live anywhere near central Iowa, it's worth your drive. They have dinner, they have lunch, they have desserts anytime in the daytime. You'll love to see the jewelry. I'm going to hold this up, and I don't know if you can see it. I bought these. I'm not a big jewelry shopper, but I did buy these because they're made by someone specifically for the Gortz House. I thought they were fun to wear with jeans, and that way I was giving to an organization that actually could use your support right now. Much like Duck Dynasty, much like Chick-fil-A, much like Hobby Lobby. It's happening. It's not just big corporations. It's your neighborhoods. It's happening to people you know that will impact your communities. And if you think they just want to silence those right-wing, far-right conservatives, Condoleezza Rice was to speak at a university just not very long ago, and people tried to silence her as well. And she's not known to be a far-right conservative, more of the moderates in the Republican circle. And so understand, it's not just those on the far right. It's not just those who are religious. It will be everyone who opposes the agenda of those in control if we don't stand by the laws of the land and the First Amendment freedoms and liberties that we've so long enjoyed. Gentlemen, do we have Deborah on the phone? Very good. Deb Thornton, thank you for joining us on the phone.
Yes, I'm here. Thanks, Tamara.
We appreciate having you join us. Deb comes in from Moravia, Liberia. She is with the Public Interest Institute and limitedgovernment.org. Public Interest Institute is a great way you can find her. Deb, quickly tell us, what are you doing in Liberia?
I'm here with my husband and our family. We'll on a 2-year job assignment for my husband, and so I'm still doing my Public Interest Institute work via computer from here, and we're getting the job done.
All right. Well, then I have a great discussion group here with me, and we're going to start today on education. Let's start. Which topic should we take first? Should we do savings? Should we just do choices? What options do parents have out there for choices in education?
Well, certainly here in the state of Iowa, there's different choices. Obviously, there's homeschooling, which the legislature did some good things last year, and Chuck can talk about that maybe in a minute. But state has also made available school tuition organizations, which are, it's a venue for people to get a tax credit for donating to scholarship funds for lower income students to attend a non-public school. And that program was expanded last year to $12 million. And so and it's a 65% tax credit. So for example, if I give a $1,000 donation, I get $650 off of my Iowa taxes. And so that helps raise money for these scholarships to go for lower income people to attend a non-public school. So that program has been around since about 2006 or so. It's grown a little bit over the years, and one of the things we'd really like to do is increase that and make it a lot bigger in the future. But it's a very viable opportunity for people.
Tom's a humble guy. He has led the charge on Capitol Hill for school choice. The Catholics have been educating their children probably better than the Protestants since, 18-something.
Yeah, a long time, 150 years for sure.
And Tom is very knowledgeable, very diligent, very smart, and gets the job done very, very well. So we praise God for Tom and the Catholics. There are a bunch of Protestants now who are kind of coming along and getting on the bandwagon. And so the school tuition organizations are just a phenomenal opportunity, both for the donor to get a huge tax deduction. Something Tom didn't mention was you can also put that $1,000 deduction or whatever amount you write the check for. You can also put that on your federal income tax, Schedule A, and at whatever rate tax you pay, and just a few days ago, the top rate bumped to 39. You could effectively get close to 100% savings on your donation. So that's a great benefit. You know, people just from a stewardship standpoint would want to give to that STO.
So I want to. So you get the $650 on the state income tax,
right?
But you can get the 100%.
Well, you get a deduction on your federal.
It's a deduction
taxes.
on federal, as opposed to a tax credit on the state. But it effectively ends up being whatever your tax rate is at the federal level.
Right.
Let's say it's 15%. Well, then you could save 15 cents on the dollar,
Right.
or $150 on a $1,000 deduction. So if you are at the lowest rate, 15%, and you get $650 saved at the state, you're cents on the dollar minimum. So that's a fabulous opportunity. But way more important than the donation for the donor is the opportunity for the poor children in Iowa. And now thousands of kids are getting the chance at private school because of the STOs.
Deb Thornton, if I could bring you into this portion of the conversation, we're talking about thousands of poor children, and often those are minority children. And I know you were just in a conversation dealing with African American students, and I know someone tried to take you apart on that issue. It's so shameful that every time we do good work, it just can't stand on its own. Somebody has to attack the motive or try to undo the good we're doing. Give us an update on that.
Well, a couple of things, and one thing also to add to the STO discussion is folks that want to contribute to this. There's various STOs around the state, so you can donate to one that's in your region. That I could donate to one that's close to Iowa City that benefits the low-income children from that Iowa City area. And secondly, on that, those donations, even though the legislature raised the maximum tax credit limit a couple of years ago, enough people give that those max out, those credits max out well before the end of the year. Generally, those credits are gone by October. So folks who are interested in this and really want to support should write those checks, now, should write those checks early. And one, then the STOs know what money they have to work with, and two, you're ensured that you do get the tax credit, because just in our own case, we sent one last check last November, and it got bounced back because the credits were all used up. So that's something to be aware of, to write those checks, because the program needs to be, and we need to talk to our legislators and get that limit raised even more, because it's so popular and so successful. And key to that is in the fact that, yes, the minority children, low-income children of any type, but particularly minority low-income children, really need the opportunity to choose what school their parents want them to go to, and not just be assigned to their neighborhood school. Brown versus Board of Education did away with the separate but equal. On the other hand, even 60 years later, the achievement gap between our minority low-income children compared to what you might consider the middle-class white children is still a huge achievement gap, and we're not making it up, and that's hundreds of children that are not doing the work they could.
Tamara, if I might, my wife and I helped start an inner-city Christian school. 82% of the 90-plus kids that attend here in inner-city Des Moines are minority students. 90+% are very poor. And so that's another opportunity, although it is not accredited, and so it doesn't qualify yet for the STO money. There have been enough donors to keep the doors open and actually for the school to thrive.
And though it's not accredited, so you can't get the STO, you can still get maybe a tax credit because it's a 501c3.
Yes.
So people are keeping it open that way.
That's
and
correct.
That reminds me, wasn't Liberty Law School not accredited when it first started? I don't think.
Yeah, a lot of schools start without accreditation and they build up to it. And
accreditation, and let's be honest, is a little overstated in the sense that the worst public school in the state and the worst Catholic school in the state are accredited. You know what I'm saying? So it's a floor. It's a very basic floor. And so it's not a bad thing, obviously, and there's some good things about it, but just the fact that you're accredited doesn't really prove a whole lot.
And I want to touch on what Deb said. She hit a point that I have said for so long. Your address may determine what time your mail is delivered, when your trash is picked up, but it certainly should not determine where your kids are educated. That is your choice as a parent.
Yeah, I think that's a real important thing, and it is important to help lower income people, and we definitely support that. But the first principle is that parents are the educators of their children.
Yes.
And they should have a right to choose the school and have some assistance from their tax dollars to make that effective,
And we don't want to get into this show because it's a whole other show, I think, but I just saw someone ask the question, show me in the Constitution where is the education provision?
well, the United States Constitution doesn't have anything per se. The state constitution does. And so there are some issues there. There was a fellow by the name of James Blaine who was an anti-Catholic guy, and he tried to stop Catholic schooling over 100 years ago. And so there are some challenges constitutionally in the states. But the good news is, and Tom can share more detail on this, I'm kind of flying at the 30,000-foot level, but 2 or 3 weeks ago in Arizona, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that education savings accounts are constitutional, and now 220,000 Arizona school children are eligible for education savings accounts. That is fabulous news. We finally are seeing this little trickle turn into more of a large stream. It's not quite a flood yet.
Right. And certainly, I mean, Iowa's one of the states where we're starting to talk about education savings accounts. Mississippi had a proposal which just didn't make it over the hump this year, and a couple other states. And the key thing about making those programs constitutional is that it's due to the parent's choice. So the state is not directing funds to a religious ministry, it's the parent's choice, and that's what makes it constitutional. So there was a bill here in the state of Iowa to enable education savings accounts. Basically what those are is I tell the school that my child is not going to go to a public school next year. Then the state would set up a savings account and put in about $5,600 into that savings account. And that way parents can use that money to go to a non-public school or homeschool or whatever works best for their children.
Now, I lost track a few years back, but not too long ago in Iowa, the total tax dollars, federal, state, and local, that go to educate one child in public school per year was over $10,000. And so I think it's now closer to 12,000 or something, and nationwide it may be even higher than that on average. So let's just say it's 10,000 to be super conservative. The state eventually saves money if they have more children home or private educated, because they aren't spending that 10+ thousand per year necessarily. It's very complicated. There's fixed costs, there's annual costs, but the point is public or private education has higher test scores on average for much less outlay of cash. So I can put it on a bumper sticker: better education for less money. And that we all should be for that. But there are powerful interests, like the teachers union, who don't agree with that bumper sticker.
So not only does it save us just the fiscal dollars, but what it saves us in children being better educated, being better able to get college scholarships, or even go on to college and even be better educated, so the career field.
Absolutely. That is the key thing for my heart, and I know Tom's heart is the same, is let's seek the best possible education for each child. And the parents care more than anybody else, and so let's empower parents to pick what's best for the child.
And I would argue that parents are going to be more invested in their public school if they don't make a choice for a private school.
Yes.
Because they know they have a choice, and that's where they want their child to be, and they want that school to work. And so that's why you're going to see that achievement levels in the public schools around those private schools will increase, and the achievement levels of the children who maybe switch from public to private will increase. And so, as Chuck said, that's the bumper sticker. You're going to get better achievement for less money.
And so we hear the concern about the public schools. They'll go out of business if we do this. Not the case if, like you say, they can raise their level as well. But two, we always hear about overcrowded classrooms. This would help the overcrowded classrooms without an expensive bond referendum. The school doesn't have to build on. It gives teachers actual freedom and competition for salaries in the workforce.
Well, just to put a...
Tamara, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Tamara, if I could jump in here for just a second. One thing that's interesting is the Friedman Foundation for School Choice did an Iowa survey last year. And in that survey, they found a couple of key things that were really pretty important. One is that something like a third of Iowans, just on the face of it, when asked, they would prefer to have their child in a private school. If money is no object, and they have a choice, a government school or a private school. A third of Iowans, just at the very face of it, would choose a private school. However, we have something like 5% that are actually enrolled in private schools, which means that it does come down to a cost factor as to what people are doing. And then the second part of that is they were doing this survey when people were asked just generally, do we spend enough on school, on education? People generally said, no, we don't spend enough on education, and we should spend more. When they were given that $10,000 to $12,000 figure as the dollar amount that was being spent per child, well, then their story changed. When they found out how much we were spending and thought about that in terms of the results that we all know we're getting, all these people switched. And they said, no, we are spending enough. No, really, that's how much we're spending? We're spending almost $12,000 a child? Well, that's plenty. That should be enough to educate my child every year. So part of the fact is that people don't know. It's a heartstrings approach. Yes, we need to spend more for the children. Yes, we need to support our public schools, and Iowa has a strong history of doing that. Yet when people realize how much we're spending, then they say, oh, well, that's really enough.
And that's a great...
Those two things are both important to know.
Absolutely great point. Deb Thornton, Public Interest Institute, joining us from Moravia, Liberia. I just love saying that. We're an international show now.
I love
because of Deb. Chuck Hurley from the Family Leader. Tom Chapman from the Iowa Catholic Conference. We'll be right back. We've got to take a message for our sponsor. We've got to take a break for our sponsors. Stay tuned. Tamara Scott Live, Truth for Our Time. We're powered by webcast1live.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner and general manager of Service Legends. I brought along a couple of the home comfort heroes.
Hi, I'm Tammy Wells.
I am Nick Wonderscheid.
I am administrative manager
I am the senior technician
from Service Legends.
It seems like every good thing, when you feel it to the bone that it's good, there's a lot of hard work put behind it. I don't think that you can fake it and have it turn out good.
If we seem like, okay, that's just weird, it's just a furnace, why would you believe so deeply in a furnace? It's not just that, we want to show the world that you can have good service.
Yeah, it's got to be, it's your home.
It's built into our daily trainings, it's built into our culture, that we're gonna do whatever it takes to have each client say they love us, period.
That's why we spend all the hours in the training that we do. And if we guarantee it's gonna be a good experience for you, or else it's free, what type of work do you think we're gonna do?
There is a guarantee.
Temperature selection guarantee, fixed right or it's free guarantee, comfort guarantee, best value guarantee. All of these guarantees hold us accountable to ensuring that we exceed your expectations. And if for whatever reason we'd fail and we can't make it right, we guarantee all of those guarantees with a 100% money back guarantee.
If you don't think that your technician can fix it right, are you gonna say that to a client? No.
You don't have to worry about having a technician come to your house.
We drug test, background check all of our team members. We put safe people in your home. Each and every one of our service techs, 400 hours a year in training.
You tell it the minute they walk in the door. They know what they're doing, they've done their homework, and they actually truly care about what you want.
Because at the end of the day, you're the person that makes sure I have a job.
They're gonna be listening. They're gonna wanna know what your challenges are. Then they're gonna come and give you options, and you get to choose.
If I'm there to help and I make it easy and painless, I did my job right that day.
Well, when it comes to your comfort, safety, and your family, you don't necessarily go buy the most expensive, but you get the most bang for your buck.
Oh, it's worth it, because there's a lot of people that will find a way to get it to work right now and then leave and then come back, charge you again, and the cycle just repeats itself. So when I'm out there looking at the furnace, I want to find why it failed today. How can we change the part today with something that you're not going to have to worry about? Is it worth changing the part today? You can put a lot of money into a furnace. I can fix parts all day. There's good job security in that for me, but is it the right thing for you?
I get a lot of the phone calls of after the technicians are there. They're just in awe. They're like, wow, you guys are great. I don't even know what to say. You guys are great. Everything you did was perfect. It was great.
Keep going though. I like this.
Just give us a try. I'm gonna take all the risk.
I've got the time to make this right. I've got the support to make it right.
Just check us out.
And if you don't see the value in what we do,
fixed right or it's free or 100% money back.
enough said.
Well, thank you for staying with us. I am Tamara Scott with Truth for Our Time. And my guest in studio, Chuck Hurley with the Family Leader, and Tom Chapman with the Iowa Catholic Conference, and Deb Thornton with the Public Interest Institute. Experts, all of them. We're talking about education, not just options and choices, but there are a lot of choices out there that you're not aware of, and we're going to get to those soon, because whether you're public schooled, private schooled, some of these are available to you, and we need to make sure that you know about them. They'll save you money on your taxes, as you filed yesterday. Some of you might have filed an extension and could still add this on, and I think there are ways you can still amend a tax form if that doesn't wave too much of a red flag for the IRS. If you've labeled yourself a Christian conservative or given to any of those groups, you're in trouble anyway.
Well, the Iowa tax return is not due until April 30th.
There we go.
So you can still get 65%
on the tax
credit for STOs. Tom, tell me, is that student tuition organization?
It's school tuition.
Oh, I called it scholarship
well,
tuition.
That's okay. It works. Everybody knows STO what it is, but it's school tuition.
School
based
tuition
on
organization.
Okay.
Right.
Now, Deb raised the excellent point. 1/3 of parents prefer private education. If money were not the issue, they would like to have a choice.
Well, it's actually, that was non-public schools. If you put in charter schools and homeschool alternatives, just over half the people wanted something other than the public school.
That's
I mean,
great.
that was the survey. And so I found that really interesting.
So the 1/3 of parents who want private are in public schools.
No, they're saying they want non-public
They want
schools.
non-public.
And then there are other options like perhaps charters, which there aren't many in Iowa, or homeschool. But if you add it all up, something other than the public school, it's a little over half.
Okay. Now, one of the things we were talking about with that tax credit, and Deb brought up that if you don't get in early, you might not make it in that 12 million window. But some of the other things we're talking about, there is no limit. And so one of the other options that I think most people don't even know about, and maybe if we need to stay with education savings accounts for a little bit, we can. Should we finish more than that, or am I jumping ahead?
Well, let's just finish at least one thing with that, and then we can go to the other.
My husband
when
has
we're
to say that
talking
to me
about,
all the time, Tom.
that survey I thought was interesting. And it has to do with how, you talk about these things, I think. But one of the things that we found in that, and I say we because Friedman Foundation, collaborated with a lot of groups to put that survey together, in that there's a lot of support for public schools in Iowa. And that's different than other states. They've done this kind of survey in about 20 states, and really it's only North Dakota and Iowa where people really support the public schools. And you know that. You've lived in Iowa. People love their public schools.
In many of the communities, the public school is the largest employer.
It is.
Which is actually an issue. That should never be the case. Your government should never be your largest employer in any community. But it is, and therefore a lot of people are tied to the schools, and we've always
and they're
had
good
a good
jobs.
history with
they're
the
good
schools.
jobs.
They're really
and so
good jobs.
So 2/3 of Iowans love the public schools, and that's great. And so I think the messaging from my perspective is, people love non-public schools. They love the public schools, but they also love to have choices in education. I mean, that's the thing that was crystal clear. A vast majority of the respondents really support the school tuition organization program, like 60-30, 2 to 1.
Tom makes an excellent point, is the way that we message and even the tone of our voice and that sort of thing really matters in this, to try to move public opinion, to move our legislators to open it up for education savings accounts. And I confess, I had a pretty rough experience with my foster kids 30 years ago in the public schools. And so I don't always speak as kindly as Tom does in that regard. And I really have to watch myself because I saw some bad things, and I've read some bad things. But the harsh reality is, in order to get education savings accounts passed in Iowa, we're going to have to be very magnanimous about the public schools.
Well, and I think it just tells you that, putting the parents first, I think, is the key. Because I think that's our foundational principle anyway, is parents should have that opportunity to choose for their children what's best.
Yes.
And Iowans respond to that, no doubt.
And the critics are always going to come back to say, and this I heard this 1,000 times when my kids were in public school, but not every parent cares like you do. What about those kids? Well, they'll likely stay in the public schools.
Yes.
Won't be a problem.
That's right.
Yeah, and even the education savings account, it doesn't touch the local property tax levy at all. All it does is that if a student is not there, the public school's not going to get money for that student who's not there. That's all it is. It's kind of like open enrollment. You know, if I move
Yes.
my child from West Des Moines to Waukee, West Des Moines isn't going to continue to get money for my child. And so we look at that in a similar way.
Is that why schools dislike it so much?
Well,
Look,
yeah.
yes, they're the paymasters or the money meisters at each school, superintendent, school board especially, and they're looking at their overall budget. And so, sure, they the more money they have, the more flexibility, freedom, and power they have.
If I'd thought it through, I'd have Ryan play that secular song. Who is it? Money ain't for nothing and the chicks are free. What song is that? You guys know where
Well,
I'm
we
coming
could we
from?
could sing it
You
for
can
you if
sing
you
it
want,
for me.
but
Tom can.
Deb,
There's a
can,
microphone
I
here. I'm
can
not
hear
singing.
you. Deb, your thoughts on this discussion?
Yeah, no, what I was going to get here and say is historically the way that parents have exercised school choice is by their choice of where they live. And this is particularly true for middle class, upper middle income parents. They buy a house in the neighborhood that they want to live, that they think is the best neighborhood with the best schools. And then on top of that, then those same folks, if they are not happy with the school their child is assigned to, they do always have the financial option to take their money and put their child in a private school and pay for it. And unfortunately, our low-income parents just don't have that same flexibility to either move because they might not be able to afford the home in a nice neighborhood in a good school district. So they don't have the flexibility to move and choose their school that way. And then they also don't have the cash flow flexibility to just write the check for a private school. And that's really where a lot of the issue is we want all children to be treated the same. We want all children to have the same opportunity to do their best for the best education possible. But from the very beginning, by not allowing that choice, we're limiting those kids. We're limiting their parents' ability to do what's best for them. And so that's really part of the core issue is someone who's wealthy, if they're not happy with the school, they move or they pay private tuition. But our low-income folks just don't have that flexibility. And we need to give those children that same opportunity for the flexibility that the others have.
Well, thank God for some generous donors who
And the STO.
do make it possible. And even before STOs were in place in 2006, we had some generous donors who scholarshiped kids, but it really is a sliver. If you look at the whole pie, it's still tiny. And Arizona, thank God, has kind of busted out of that sliver, and now it's a big slice. Tom, why don't you share just kind of the picture of what's happening in Arizona and what it might look like if it came to Iowa?
Well, in Arizona, what they've done is they've expanded the availability of education savings accounts. At first, it was kind of just for special needs, and now it's expanded to their schools, which they would call failing schools or lower performing schools. It's available to much more of the populace in Arizona. Here in Iowa, the first bill that we had this year, which got out of subcommittee, really it would have been the most expansive ESA program of all because it would be available to all parents who did not want to have their child in the public school. Now, as legislative proposals do, over the years, we're committed to this long term, and it may have to change as we go forward and try to shape it in such a way that we can get it passed. But right now, it's the amount that the parent would get would be 100% of an average basic state aid for child, and then any parent could access that. It's not just for lower income. It's for any parent.
And we have that now?
We do not.
We do not.
That's what we're working for, and that was the bill that we had this year. And
It passed out of subcommittee, though, Tamara, and the discussion is critical, that people begin to understand what true parent choice could and should look like.
And so as we go into this election year, a great thing to be bringing up at the local coffees, the legislative forums. There are all kinds of U.S. Senate candidates, U.S. congressional candidates, and local level candidates running. And now is the time to be asking them, don't criticize them if they don't understand it. Help them understand the freedom for every parent, every demographic, as Deb has brought in, minorities and otherwise. And so this would help any politician, as it were.
Sure, and we've done a lot of grassroots work among our, I would say, the non-public schools over the last year on this issue, and literally thousands of messages came in to legislators from their constituents about this. And the interesting thing is the argument that came back from, and it was mainly the Democratic talking points that went back to their constituents, they didn't argue about the principle, which is the parent choosing. They said, well, this is going to divert money from the public schools and it's going to cost too much. Well, we can shape that, part of the proposal. And so when the rubber hits the road, that may change. But
And let's take that argument apart. Because
Sure.
they're always asking and begging for more money. What they call when they don't get an increase, they call a cut. It's not a cut, it's just not an increase. And so this would actually help some of those schools alleviate the cost of educating those students that they're always claiming they need more money for.
Well, I really believe, and there's leadership messaging, but also if you go to the rank and file into the public schools, they're not nearly as opposed as maybe some of their leadership is. I mean, you would be surprised, maybe you wouldn't be surprised, but people that work in the public school systems in different parts of the state have come to some of our meetings and say, we really support this.
In fact, if you look at the statistics, public school teachers send their children to private schools at a rate over 100%, over 2 times the rate that non-public school teachers do.
Well, you're saying not 100%.
It's more than double.
It's double the rate.
It's
double the rate. So not 100% of school teachers send their kids to private schools, but 100% more than non-school teachers send their kids to a private school.
Yes, and
that says a lot.
Well, it does say a lot, and so Tom's right. There are some rank and file that get this, but the union brass is pretty locked down against this idea.
Okay, Deb Thornton, I want to bring you in at this point, and I guess I am jumping from education savings accounts over to the tax credit. We can always come back. But Deb, you wrote a paper recently, and folks, you can find that at Limited Government or publicinterestinstitute.org. This one is called Parents Claim the Tuition and Textbook Tax Credit. Legislators update them now. Deb, in this particular newsletter, and I should have warned you ahead of time I was going to bring this up, but what you talk about the underutilized state tax credit available to parents. I don't think most parents in Iowa even know that they can do this. Can you explain it to our viewers and listeners?
Sure. There is the tuition tax cut, or tuition and textbook tax credits. And what that is you get 25%, again, as an Iowa tax credit, not an actual refund, but a credit, 25% of the first $1,000 of your eligible expenses for your child to be in school. And the great thing about this is that it doesn't only apply to someone who's paying to send their child to private school. It applies for children in the government school, public school as well. So any parent who spends money for their child's education can take this tax credit up to $250, which is a nice chunk of tax credit to get. And the list of things that you can claim is quite varied, and it includes things such as ACT and SAT test preparation books. It includes special shoes for sports, like soccer cleats. It can include special clothing for sports and for school activities if you have to buy a specific dress for the child to participate in choir. And interesting, it's kind of fun. One of the things that is also included is tuxedo rental.
Yeah,
So
prom
if the child
dresses
goes to
too.
prom,
That blew my
If you're
mind.
rent, yeah.
you can claim that tuxedo rental. And it's things like to help the children fully participate. So, for example, if you have to pay for tickets to a show, a play, to a football game, to a homecoming dance, all those costs that are most of us consider incidental, but they certainly add up in that whole school experience, can be claimed on this textbook tax credit. And of all the people eligible in the state, something like only a third of the people eligible claim this. So we've got something like 200,000 taxpayers with children in school who don't claim this. So they're leaving money on the table and they're paying taxes that they don't have to pay. And that's the big deal there, is that this is a good tax credit for all families at whatever income level to take, and that they're leaving money on the table. So I, as a low tax person, I never agree with that.
Deb, can you clear up, what about children going to an unaccredited school or homeschooling?
And Deb, I'm going to have you hold off on that because I know we need to take another break here, and I'm trying to do them on time, which I always struggle with. So let's go to a break, and when we come back, you clear up for us if they can do that if they're at a non-accredited or a homeschooling situation. And we'll continue this discussion because, as you say, at least 185,000 households with adjusted gross income above $30,000 had positive pre-credit tax liability, but did not claim that credit. Folks, you're leaving our government with money they don't deserve. We never want to give them more money than they need. That's just not a good idea. That's like giving money to the drunken, a homeless man. He'll go out and spend it poorly. So now I've made everybody mad. We're going to go to break. Stay tuned with us. I am Tamara Scott Live. This is Truth for Our Time. We're powered by webcast1live.com. Be right back.
Get away from us, you neat old credit card. We don't have any more money. We're in trouble now. Save us! Help! Somebody save us! Somebody help! Help! Save us!
Hi, I'm Tom Coates from Consumer Credit of Des Moines. If your credit card's a little too animated, give us a call.
Hooray! We're saved! Consumer Credit, you're our hero!
Hey, psst. Let me let you in on a little secret. You ready? Always try to do business with people, not places. Especially if you seek honest Christian business people. And when it comes to my car, I really need to trust who's working on it. Now, my family is so blessed. A few years ago, we found a family-owned automobile repair shop that operates as a Christian business also. Open, honest, reliable, trustworthy. It's AMCO on Hickman Road in front of Kmart, and it's a family-owned Christian operating business. This family treats your car as if it was their car. Everything from oil changes to transmission repair and everything in between. So the next time you feel the need to be at peace with your choice of who you can trust with your car, give AMCO on Hickman a chance to serve you. And tell them Max sent you.
All across America, there are countless numbers of people struggling with addiction and other life-controlling issues. Probably someone you know and love. There is a way out. There is hope. Transformations Treatment Center in Delray Beach, Florida, has a unique approach to substance abuse treatment. Call now and ask about our Guaranteed Success program or log on to transformationstreatment.com. Transformations. Change your life. Change your relationships. Transform your world.
And I am Tamara Scott. Thanks for staying tuned with us. We're coming into segment 3 of Tamara Scott Live with Truth for Our Time. We're talking about education, not just options and choices, but things that are available to you right now, to many parents, public school parents who could be getting tax credit at the end of the year. I know you're disgusted that we didn't tell you this before yesterday, to April 15th.
2 weeks ago.
Right. We're telling you now for next year. And as Chuck said, our state income tax is not due until the 30th of April. And so you could still get yourself in on that one. So Deb, as when we were going to break, talk to us a little bit more about this, the number of parents who are not using this. And Chuck had asked you a question. Is this available to parents with children in non-accredited schools or even homeschool situations?
The non-accredited schools are not eligible. That is one thing. If it's a private school, it does have to be an accredited private school or to be in the public school. So the non-accredited private schools, no, you're not eligible to take this. And I was just looking here at my computer, which is a little slower from Africa than in Iowa, but not too bad. So while we're on break, I'm trying to find the answer here. And I believe that it does apply for homeschooling. I believe we'll have to.
Sounds right.
Tom Chapman's shaking his head,
I
yes.
think that's right, Deb, yeah.
Schooling, yes. Unaccredited, no, I believe is the criteria. And it's the amount of money, according to the Iowa Department of Revenue, they did an analysis last year of people who took the credit and people who didn't. And if you looked at it just based upon the averages, our parents left something like $21 million on the table.
People, that's $21 million. You leave it in the hands of the state.
That's a pretty good chunk of money.
Yeah. I mean, beyond what we're not getting back in our own paychecks, the state should not have extra money. They do dangerous things.
Yeah, no one should ever. You should pay what you owe, but you should never pay more than you owe. And given that this was specifically people with children, under the age of 18, and they're eligible to take that, the vast majority are, and that's $250 per child. So if you're a family with 3 or 4 children in school, you can get a $1,000 credit. It's $250 per child, and we know that we spend that money on our children so that they can fully participate. So this is an important thing for parents to know about, and yes, they do have till the 30th of April. So, so dig back in that drawer and get those receipts. And then for the legislature, one interesting thing about this is the dollar amount there has not been updated since 1998. So this has not been raised, in terms of inflation and that sort of thing, and looking at what our expenses are. This has not been raised for, almost 20 years. So we do need to get the legislature to look at that and to increase that, just like they've increased the STO money. Myself, I would say, I would go 100% to $1,000 or 25% up to $25,000 or something. But it does need to be raised, I think, because I know we parents spend that money.
And I know Tom wants to add here, but before I go to Tom, what about the critics who are going to say you're taking money out of the state budget? It will have a negligible impact.
Well, right now our state budget is something like $500 million surplus. So when we're running, when we're running a huge surplus, our rainy day funds are fully funded. All the reserve funds are fully funded. We since the recession, the money that goes to the schools has been increased over 10% since the recession. And I was one of only 2 states to have that large of a public school funding increase. The money's there. Claim that tax credit, and I think the legislature should support our working families and raise that credit amount. That's a key thing that can support all working families. That whether you're low income or high income. It helps all of us.
Yeah, that's certainly true, Deb. And the interesting thing, we had to do some education even in the legislature because, when we started to work on the education savings accounts, they were sending out emails saying, well, look at this $15 million tax credit that we do for non-public school families. Well, that same report that you mentioned, over 90% of the recipients are public school parents. And probably 3/4 of the money goes to public school parents, and that's great. But, people just assume something like that's just a big, kind of giveaway to non-public school parents, and that's not the case. And so definitely it's on our list of things to work on in terms of increasing that. And the governor has said he's interested in doing that as well.
That'd be a good thing.
One sort of wrap-up thought from me as we're getting close to the end here is for 24 or 25 years, my wife and I have been homeschooling, and we've worked with a lot of homeschooling parents, and really the decision is not usually primarily financial. The finances can help, and we should have justice regarding finances. And so I see this as a justice issue and an empowerment issue to those families that are on the fence. But the thing that has really impressed me are parents who really, really care about their own children and their own children's values and success in life find a way. They find a way. They cut back on other expenses. They seek out scholarships. They co-op network. And so really, if there's any parents listening, I want to urge you to really do a gut check. How important is your child's education? In my wife's and my view, there's nothing more important. I mean, we would never feed them rancid meat. Why would we feed them rancid philosophy?
Absolutely.
So I would just say, do a gut check, and then by all means, let's work toward justice and fairness and more competition that's going to raise all boats.
Chuck, that is an excellent point. We were one of those families. We were a one-income family. And I have windows without drapes still. It just wasn't that important once we went on living. and other sacrifices like that we made. But you made a point that you wouldn't feed your kids rancid meat. I'll say this to every woman who may be listening. You would not give your wedding ring to a stranger in a mall and ask them to hold it for you. And yet, every day, parents drive their children or bus them off to strangers they don't know in the classroom, people they really don't know the worldview or how their temperament may be on a variety of subjects. And you're giving your most prized possession into the care of someone else that you really don't know in a system that is now much like a penitentiary. They are gated. You're only allowed certain times when you're invited, or you check in that front window. You have to check in, get permission to come in. You're given a badge. You're only allowed in the allocated areas. Never can you just go to a child's classroom and pop in and see what the conversation is. And I hear things on the boards have been changed for conferences. Posters have been taken down before parents come in. As this goes into Common Core/Iowa Core and the curriculums that are aligned to that, as this comes in with the anti-bullying bills that are being pushed through a number of states that are not helpful, there are studies out that show that bullying actually increases in those districts where they have anti-bullying programs. Peer-to-peer victimization goes up. More parents, I think, are going to want to pull out and pull away from the education system because unlike a car that can be recalled so that a part can be fixed, these are your children. You can't recall them. Once they've been programmed, it's very difficult to reprogram that thinking into a variety of issues, not just religion anymore and faith, but capitalism, free trade, the Constitution, our American history. All these things are suspect under the teachings that are happening today. In many school systems, we have examples after example of it. So, Chuck, thank you for that comment.
Well, and again, I want to have the right tone, and I don't want to overly bash, but when a child is taught that they evolved from slime and there is no special creation, in a very real sense, that is mockery of a holy God, or I would even go as far as say that that's blasphemous to deny that there is a creator God. And so that is the philosophy in the biology classroom, is that we evolved. 12 out of 12 of the nation's leading biology textbooks are rooted in evolution. And so I would just caution parents, don't turn your children over to a rancid philosophy, to a philosophy that denigrates or denies their loving creator God.
Absolutely.
Well, that's the beauty of the schools that we have in the non-public system, is that they have a mission, and that mission, prime mission, is to talk about where do you come from, and what is the worldview. Catholic Church certainly is, we're created by God, and we have original sin, but that creation is good, and so that's kind of the attitude that you're going to find in a Catholic school.
I love your billboards where
yeah.
Christ is the principal.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous.
Yeah, they do a nice job with that. And certainly people like Chuck and myself are watching every day at the legislature to make sure that schools and parents have the ability to fulfill the mission they want to fulfill for their kids.
And so one thing we haven't touched on, the difference between tax credits, tax vouchers, because it seems to be a point of contention whenever it comes up in a campaign. So if somebody in this conversation could kind of clearly bring us through what is the difference, what should we want or not want?
Yeah, I think anything along those lines can work. It depends on your state constitution. Iowa's constitution is such that it has a Blaine Amendment, which says that no money can go to a religious
blasted Blaine.
mini. Yeah, I know. And those are the type of things, it's just almost unthinkable to get fixed in this day and age. And so you have to work around it. And the way you do that is you make it the parent's choice. And that's what Arizona's ESA bill does. That's what our bill does, is the parent then chooses. Because I think there will be new schools that are formed. If we get an ESA bill passed, there'll be new schools. Some of them might be more academies, and that's good. I mean, we need to have a lot of options for people.
Choice.
Exactly.
It's choice. It's competition.
It's not about religion.
Things always improve when you have competition.
They do.
Yeah. So I think there are many models. That's one model. Tax credits model. If the state wants to give money directly in a voucher system, I think that works too. In some states, Indiana does that. They have a Blaine Amendment, so it can work. It's just a lot of different options are available.
Chuck, anything to add?
I just want to emphasize, we have some very able people in Iowa. Tom is at the lead of that pack. There's some others, Trish Wilger and Eric Goranson, and there's just a number of people that are ready, willing, and able to help you, the listener, walk through this minefield, if you will, of school choice, and Deb, obviously. But we have to have a change in leadership up on Capitol Hill before we will ever get ESAs passed. And so Tom doesn't have a PAC. We do. I'm going to get real political for a minute. You should get involved in a few key races in the Iowa Senate this summer and fall if you want to advance school choice. If you're okay with having a monopoly with the government schools, and parents not having that choice, poor parents not being able to afford it, and not having justice, fairness between parents, then you can sit on the sidelines. But I would strongly encourage you, don't sit on the sidelines. Get a hold of us, thefamilyleader.com, or call our office, and Greg Baker or I will tell you which races to get involved in to really make a difference on school choice.
Deb Thornton, do you have anything you want to add in our last 5-minute round off?
I would second that, and because we do have to have Republican control of the Iowa Senate in order to move this issue forward, simply because the Democrats in the Iowa Senate are not going to allow it to happen. And the big thing there, as always, is follow the money. The Iowa Teachers Union gives 100% of our teachers' union dues PAC money to Democrat candidates. And we all know that every teacher in the state of Iowa is certainly not a Democrat. And every teacher in the state of Iowa certainly does not support the initiatives coming out of the Iowa Senate. And yet their union dues money, which of course is originally taxpayer money going to pay the teachers, goes 100% to those Democrat candidates pushing those ultra-liberal agendas. And the one thing that the teachers union is adamantly opposed to is school choice. And I would echo that. We've got to get that Senate control, and we've got to address this issue of all of that union money going only to the one political party. And those teachers, I don't think the teachers themselves don't know that that's where their money goes. And they also need to stand up and to take a position and make their opinions known as to what's going on with their leadership.
Real briefly, we have great candidates in swing districts, so there's no excuse not to win the Iowa Senate for school choice this fall.
All right, Tom?
First, I'd say I do agree with the political analysis on this issue and on that. Secondly, I'd encourage people to go to iowaace.org. It's the Iowa Alliance for Choice in Education, and that's where you can get involved and stay in touch with this issue. Obviously, both of our organizations, Iowa Catholic Conference and the Family Leader, also have websites, and that you can sign up for our stuff there. But Iowa ACE also has a PAC, and that's not church work, but I also am a donor to that PAC, and they will go to any candidate that supports school choice. And so that's also an option for people. If they want to get involved with their checkbook, go to Iowa ACE and learn more about the Educational Opportunities PAC.
iowaace.org. And very quickly, in maybe a minute if you can, I see on here parents will apply through the Department of Education. The program will be administered by the Department of Management for the education savings accounts. Is there a concern for parents that they don't want to be under the heading of the Department of Education or submitting to them in any way?
Well, the concern is we want to have the Department of Management running it because I think that's a more objective place to be running, because it'll be like a debit card with certain vendors. And so I think people, we will not agree to a bill that will not allow parents to live out that choice.
Okay. All right. So we've got to come back down to that last minute. Deb Thornton joined us. She is from the Public Interest Institute, limitedgovernment.org. You can find them. The phone number if you'd like to contact that organization is 319-385-3462, 319-385-3462. And in 30 seconds,
thefamilyleader.com, or call me 515-238-9167. God bless you for your concern. Tamara, I thank you for this great program. Thank God. I'm wondering, when are you going to get on Fox?
You do. Yeah, you're doing a great job,
Thank
Tamara,
you
and I
so
appreciate
much.
the opportunity.
Oh, Ryan, save that part. Thank you so much. Tom, your organization contact.
Yeah, www.iowacatholicconference.org. You can sign up for our network and get our regular emails during the session, and we're happy to have you.
Very good. I thank my guests for joining me today. We're here to inform you. You don't have to inflame to inform. We just want to get information out there, education to you in your hands, because people are fearful around this country. And the reason they're fearful is they don't know what to do. They don't know what they can say. We're offering you a chance here with your own kids to make a difference. And what a great opportunity that is. I am Tamara Scott. Thanks for joining us today. Be encouraged. Never be complacent.